Hey, it's Gavin with Haverstick Designs. We're here in Southern California at the Rock Room. We're gonna go check it out. David,
hey guys,
what's up, man?
Come on in, Gavin.
How you doing?
Good to see you. Welcome to the Rock Room.
So we're here in the Rock Room with David Carey. Thanks so much for having us and allowing us to tour your beautiful space.
Thanks, you guys helped build it.
I know that in the past you've had other studios, but maybe nothing quite like this.
Yeah, this is the 5th iteration of the Rock Room.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, I started in a bedroom, you know, on a small desk with the bed and everything else. And then I moved to a bigger bedroom. And then I moved to a converted kind of den living room. Then I was actually in the garage when it was the garage, you know, concrete floors, the whole thing. And then now I'm in this space, which is, you know, dream come true.
Right now, it's one room space.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future that might change, but it's set up fully for Dolby Atmos. I've listened to multiple things in this room, and it just sounds amazing.
It came out really good. For those of you that are the specific folks, I'm running 714 right now. I have a setup to go 914, and I just haven't done it yet, and it's coming out really great. This was a little bit of an evolution because I had a full set of Genelec, the 1031As, which are a little bit dated. You know, probably 15 years ago, these were the rock speakers that everybody was using.
Yeah.
And I was really happy with them, and I had a full set of them. And then the main speakers, the Meyer HD1s, I got turned on to these from a mentor of mine, Wynn Davis, who runs a studio called Total Access. And I just fell in love with them, and I did a lot of work on them, and I've gotten used to what they sound like.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of work, Wynn and I, back and forth between his studio, Total Access, and here. And so it just made sense for us to try to keep the rigs somewhat parallel. They're expensive. They don't make them anymore, so they're hard to find. And so I wasn't able to get my hands on, you know, 7 of them.
Are you able to get parts for them easily?
Oh, you can still get parts for them, and Meyer will still service them. Both of those have been up to Meyer and been serviced, and they do a fantastic service job. So they're practically brand new.
Yeah.
They just don't make them anymore. I'm still debating whether or not the center channel is going to flip to an HD1.
Sure.
But the rest of the Genelecs, and then I have the 8330As in the ceiling, and these tie into their GLM system so that I can turn them on and off remotely, which is great for the ceiling, even though I can reach them.
Yeah.
It's just great because I have it set up when the computer comes on, the GLM comes on, the speakers come on.
Yeah.
If I shut GLM off, the speakers go off. It's fantastic. It's really fluid.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's a little, you know, Frankenstein at the moment. I would love to be in a full set of ATCs or PMCs or something like that eventually at some point, but I'm super happy with these, and the room is translating well. The information I'm getting is correct.
Yeah.
We were able to balance the room really well. And so right now I'm super pleased with them.
That's great. It's always, these projects is a 2-step process. You've got to isolate the room first, which, you know, you have neighbors and you want to be a nice neighbor to those people. So I know you did a lot of that work yourself. And
we stripped the inside of the shell down to the studs, down to the concrete subfloor. And then following your design, we rebuilt, and so the floor is it's not really technically floated, but it's on the rubber isolators for all the joists, and then we insulated the floor really well. But then the walls are floating, and the ceiling is floating all the way around, you know, on the hat channel, and then I think we're 2 layers of drywall plus all the treatment that you guys designed for the room.
You ever have any issues with sound leaking out? I mean,
no.
Pretty much kind of a bunker.
The weakest part is the door.
Sure.
And you know, we did not do you know, a double door with an air gap or anything like that. There was a compromise, you know, aesthetics wise. There's always compromises.
Yes.
For those of you that are going to do it, and there's always a budget.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of leakage out through the door, but not in, which is what I wanted the most. Now, if the dog goes bananas right outside the door, you know, you're going to hear it. But but it's it's so good that like I hear the air conditioner and every now and then I'll hear, the computer. But that's a real testament to that's my greatest noise pollution in this room.
Right.
Like we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, nice thing is you got a mini split system, so you could turn it off if you
and
need to.
I do that all the time. Like sometimes if I'm really in critical, because I don't monitor super loud, like I'm really sensitive about my ears, and I don't need to now also because it translates so well at any volume that I found I can keep the volume down and still have it translate really well. I'm not having to push 75, 80 dB to get it to sit right with the Fletcher-Munson curve.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. It's a good read.
Yeah.
And because I had to look it up at one point so that I could educate myself on it.
Yeah.
But I don't have to monitor that loud.
Yeah.
Because the room translates so well that I can keep it down, which means I can mix longer. It means I can be more detailed. And so that's a really big testament to, I think, the design. I won't give myself props for my construction skills because there's still a little touch-up paint that needs to happen and whatnot. But
you did a great job in here.
I think I got pretty true to the. It's also speaks really highly of how you guys sent the plans. Because we did a lot of this remotely, which is also a big plus. And the plans were. I didn't feel like I needed a degree in architecture to read the plans. Yeah. Which then allowed me to do all the construction from the plans. And I was able to get pretty detailed. And I think I'm fairly proud that we pulled the plans out. Yeah. I'm really close.
It's always a thing with the Atmos systems is that the center channel messes with your screen. Like it's going to fire into the back of your computer monitor or anything like that.
I have a solution.
Yeah, I want you to kind of show that off.
So this is from a great company called Space Lab Systems. And so you can see I've just got a little remote switch there at the console. And it allows the center speaker to drop out of sight.
Yeah.
And so if I happen to be watching football on a Sunday in here.
Who would you watch if you watch?
Well, I'd be watching the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay.
Send the hate mail to Gavin. I can put the speaker out of the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great too because you have this screen here and it's set at an angle because a lot of times if you have the screen upright, you're going to block that tweeter and it's going to be problematic. But with it being angled like this and low, I think it's a perfect setup.
I really like it. This is an Argosy desk. I had to hunt around to find that particular monitor that would fit between those two, and then I had to play a lot with the flat angle of it. Yeah. So that I could work and I could see it well, but then it also clear the speaker. And then I was really worried about the reflections going up.
Sure.
And I've been really pleased with the way we did the cloud. It's great. My number one objective was to have the room flat. I wanted the room to be able to translate. I wanted to be able to trust the information coming out of the speakers. Like a lot of people watching this, listening to this, I've spent years running from my car to my wife's car to my headphones to check and figure out the bass and the kick drum. And I wanted to be able to trust the room so that I could move faster. The bonus was having it look cool.
Yeah.
And I think when, shout out to Oscar on your team. I know he's not here for this trip.
Yeah.
But he really was patient with me tweaking the renderings.
Yeah.
Plus, as we adjusted the Atmos layout and
that's very helpful to do in the rendering phase because with Atmos, just like the music is in 3D, in the room itself, you have to place speakers in 3D.
Yeah.
And so being able to show like exactly where the speaker was going to end up, and then we can work the cloud around that. Renderings are such a big part of our process these days because it helps us to avoid conflicts within the room. Like you design a ceiling cloud, if it ends up not meshing well with where the speakers need to be placed, then you have a problem once it gets installed. But then the other side of it, that you mentioned, is that we're visual people, and studios should be a place where you feel creative and inspired. So it's something where being able to tweak those renderings and just get it exactly the way you want it to, it also gives you just something to shoot for. Because if you don't have those renderings and you're building these off of 2D plans, it's like I don't even know what this is going to look like when I'm done.
Yeah, it's well said, and it was such an important part for me. It's also a big motivating thing too, like because when you see the 2D plans, okay, it's coming to life, but then when you see the rendering, all of a sudden you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And literally, if you looked at the renderings, this is it.
This is it. Yeah.
I think we literally. My wife had picked out the chair she wanted. I sent the picture of the chair to Oscar, and I had to put it in the rendering so we could literally see how everything was going to balance.
Right.
And so that was one of my favorite parts about the process.
Mm-hmm. So one of the elements that I think everybody sees when they walk in are these sidewall LED strips.
Oh yeah.
So
my favorite. It was the one request I had after I saw all the pictures of the other designs that you guys had completed.
Yeah.
I had to have LEDs because it created such a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a lot of work to hide them the way that we showed them in the renderings, and you did an excellent job with it. It's just got a really nice glow, and I know that you went through a few different LEDs as we went through it, and kind of experimented as you go. But the way that this channel is just LEDs are hidden down below there, and so you just a nice soft glow, and the red matches the red fabric towards the front of the wall. I just think it ties everything together really well.
It was the piece in the renderings that sold me, frankly. Like I knew the technical stuff was right, but I really appreciate the work that your team did to help get the aesthetics right so that I could really feel like, okay, this is gonna be my room. And then when I started building it, it was probably the most complicated part.
Yeah.
But I was so sold on the drawing that I had to sit down and figure out. And I ordered, I think, just about every LED strip on Amazon. And I ended up going to a lighting supply house that specializes in like under counter lights. And I showed them I showed them the renderings and said, I want this kind of neon glow. And that's when they said, okay, you got to do these.
Let's talk a little bit about the treatment that we have in the room.
Sure.
So let's start with this diffuser array that's back here. This is the Vicoustic multifuser. And I really love the way it looks in here. I know that we have kind of a dark theme and they have that black finish on it. And it just kind of works out really well around the speakers. I know you had to kind of cut around some of them a little bit to get the speakers in the right locations. But we have bass strapping around the perimeter of the room. We do this in a lot of our designs because having bass strapping where the wall and the ceiling meet in that corner is something that's going to help out with tangential modes in the room. A lot of times, I mean, that space isn't even being used for anything else, so we might as well make it work for the acoustics of the space. So that's all filled with insulation, wrapped in fabric, and there's just only one break here is where we put the mini split, but it's pretty much continuous around the whole room, and that helps out a lot.
And it wasn't difficult to build. The plans that you guys sent were really easy for a layperson to read.
Sure.
And it's a lot of insulation. I will tell you that much. There is a lot of insulation up there.
Yep.
And it was building the frame was easy. Getting the fabric to stretch right so that it was smooth. That took a little practice, but I was able to get that in really well, especially where we cut the corner and then frame around the window. There were a couple of little tricky things, but it was dramatic, the result when it was finished.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of I know that you built all this yourself, like as far as all the interior treatment, and I know you worked with Fabric Wall out of St. Louis, and used their track system, and I know they were a huge help for you kind of during the process.
They were a huge help. I actually got on the phone with their chief installer. We did a little, in fact, for this turn here. They were great. He got on the phone with me. We did a little FaceTime. I showed him the frame and showed him where I was trying to turn and tuck, and he gave me some advice on how to cut the track, and it was great. They were super helpful. And so I would certainly, if anybody's thinking about doing fabric themselves, call them.
Yes.
Ask for advice. They will give you advice. They've got a lot of great videos on how to do the install and get the tools.
Yes. Yeah, don't use a paint scraper.
Don't use a paint scraper. You will rip the fabric. Don't use a putty knife. Just buy the little tools that they sell you. It'll be the best thing you ever did.
Yeah. And we also have vertical bass traps here in the front front corner in the red there. The front wall is treated. We got a nice cloud above here, a cloud in the back of the room too. Everything kind of works around where these speakers need to be located for
this
Dolby
cloud
Atmos.
was a big deal, and shout out to Oscar at Haverstick Designs, because Oscar did like 9 renderings of this cloud for me, because we were trying to figure out the right placement of the ceiling speakers to meet the Dolby specs.
Yeah.
And make it so I could actually hang the cloud with where the floor, the ceiling joists are. And so we did several iterations of this. And then it was originally supposed to be one piece, but I couldn't get the one piece through the doorway.
Right.
And so then Oscar helped, we cut it into 2 pieces in the drawing so that I could assemble it, bring it in, hang it, and then connect it together.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. I wouldn't have gotten there on my own without that kind of help remotely.
Awesome. So in the rock room, what is your normal day like? Like, what kind of stuff are you working on?
It's been evolving. I think like a lot of people, I started doing, I started out over the years doing full projects. Like I would produce, engineer, mix, the whole thing. Lately, over the last couple of years, I've really morphed into mostly mixing, which I love. It's great. I mean, I still love setting up a full band and, tracking drums and all of that. But I would say probably 85% now is all mixing. And I'm trying to stand up more Atmos mixing because having the room, having the gear, being able to do it, I think that's also where the puck's going. And so I've had a couple of genre flips lately. I went through I kind of go in phases depending on, I think it's because of, I do a lot of work on referral. And so I did a blues record, which then got me another blues project, which then got me a country record. I've been a rock guy for a long time, but rock's going through weird phases. And so, and then now kind of the rock thing is coming back, and I've got a couple of rock projects coming. And so, I try to be flexible and so that I can keep working.
Yeah.
My primary workflow is stereo. And now that I'm set up with Atmos, I can move between them easily. And the way, the brain of my studio is the Grace system, and it makes it real easy to go from Atmos to 5.1 to 2.0 stereo back. And with the latest updates to Pro Tools, the renderer's built in, the routing's gotten much simpler. And so, it allows me to do a lot of stuff. In here, I don't do any drums in here, obviously. This room's not set up for drums. And the type of drums that I typically record, I want a big room. I want the room mics, and I want to be able to crush them and all that stuff. So I will typically go, there's a studio around the corner called Total Access that has a fantastic live room, and I will do drums over there. I'll do a lot of the live tracking with a band over there. But then we come back over here and we'll do overdubs, all the editing, mixing. And I used to have to go back over there to do the mixings, the final mixing, so that I could get the, some of the bass and all that stuff dialed in. And now I don't have to do that.
That's
so,
nice. Makes it convenient to be able to do that on your own time.
Oh, for sure. And so that's really kind of the objective in here is I still will do a lot of vocals, vocal pickup and stuff in here, because I typically like to work sitting next to somebody or having somebody sit on the couch and keep them comfortable versus in a booth behind glass where they feel like they're in a fishbowl. And so we'll do a lot of, I do a lot of reamping of guitars. A lot of people that are recording guitars at home or they're, DIing directly into the computer, I'll reamp it and run it through a Marshall, mic'd up and just get that extra little, inch out of it that might make the difference in the mix.
Next, I'd love for you to run down a little bit about the gear that you use and tell us a little bit about why you chose some of these things.
So I'm running a 2019 Mac Pro. I'm in a Pro Tools HDX rig, so I have inside the computer is 2 Pro Tools HDX cards, and then I'm a big fan of the Universal Audio. So I have 2 Universal Audio Octo cards in there. Although their native stuff is getting really good now. But so the computer is maxed out in terms of PCI cards. The control center is the Grace M908, which is a fantastic piece of gear. It's the brain, really. The computer's fed into it. It's a USB interface. The Pro Tools rigs feeds into it. I have Apple TV 4K and a Marantz receiver that runs the full Dolby downloading, the Dolby decoding, and all of that pipes into the Marantz, so I can easily switch between, into the Grace, so I can easily switch between them. And my traditional rig, my stereo rig, I have a bunch of outboard gear, and so I'm external summing through a Dangerous 2-bus. I've got a little bit of, I have more gear in storage that I've tried to slim down to stuff that I really use.
Sure.
But I have a few outboard compressors, a couple of pieces that I like to use in stereo mixing especially, that right now I have it all hardwired into the inserts of Pro Tools. So I can treat it like a plug-in. I can drop it right in, it's up and running. And for the most part, like one of my old SSL, the G compressor, I don't really change those settings very much.
Sure.
If I want to change it, it just depends on how hard I push into it from inside Pro Tools. And so for the most part, that's all in my stereo rig. Although now that the renderer in Atmos is built into the new Pro Tools, I'm starting to use more outboard in that now that I can use HDX cards. Shout out to my two gear guys, Eric at Vintage King here in LA, great guy, helps me with a lot of stuff, and Ed at Sweetwater. Eric turned me on to this, the SSL. It just came out. It's fantastic. And they've been constantly updated, but I really love the fader on it. It feels like a real fader. So unlike some of the other USB controllers, this one's got really nice, it's a real SSL fader. And then the unit will control a lot of other stuff. And so I find that it's been really nice because I still like to ride automation.
Sure.
Especially vocal automation. I typically do that by hand. There's a lot of other automation that I draw in, but now with Atmos, there's so much more automation that I find that I'm starting to do a lot of it by hand. I'm running a Trinoff Demon as the very last step before the speakers. Shout out to Antoine from Trinoff. He remoted in from France and did the last little bit of tweaking for me in the Trinoff software that really kind of took it to the last place, really got it tight, especially with, there's two subs on the floor back there. And he was really able to tweak a couple of those little things in the time alignment. You know, there's so much stuff that happens in that Trinoff box that I don't understand.
Trinoff is, I always call it a cheat code. It's just like that last little bit that just takes it to a whole nother level even.
And admittedly, I was worried about just having another box and would it create delay and all of that. But the stuff that it does, like, because it's set up, I can turn it off if I want to. I don't ever want to. A lot of folks might be familiar with this. This is the Clarity M. And it's a 5.1 sound measurement device. For those of you that are still learning Atmos, the way you check for loudness is through a 5.1 re-render is what it's called. It's basically a split of your session that comes out as a 5.1 so that you can measure it correctly. And so the delivery requirements for Atmos are very strict. And so I found that I had to bring this up where I could see it right in my eye line. I'm still trying to figure out kind of the balance so that it's not super cluttered.
Yeah, it looks clean to me. I mean, it's like the whole system. You did a really great job of just all the wiring is concealed. It's, it looks like your workstation's real focused. Like you put some time and effort into that.
I had a lot of help and a lot of input, but yeah, there's channels in the floor. So there's you can see a couple of them, but there's little hatches in the floor. So I can pop up 3 hatches and run cables from the desk to the corner where the racks are. I can run them to over there. So if we're running guitar, if I'm doing something with the guitars, it's all under the floor, so it's out of the way, but I can get to it quickly. So I can pull new cable if I need to. And when we installed it, I ran extra tie lines, mic lines, guitar lines, because you just never know when you need something. To anybody that's building a studio yourself, PVC pipe is your friend. There's a ton of PVC pipe in the floor and in the ceiling, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, because then you could pull a mic line through it. It makes it real easy later. And so there was a lot of that, when you're down to the studs, you just have to think through, what am I maybe going to need?
Cheap to do it.
Then, and I've got Cat 6 lines that run to all the speakers' positions. Not that, the 1031s don't use Cat 6 right now, but there's a good chance when I swap them out for something in the future, they'll all be network connected. So I ran the Cat 6 to all the locations so that it's ready if I need to upgrade. Yeah.
I do want to point out something very important. When I walked in, my eye was drawn to this because my favorite band is Wilco.
Oh yeah, Wilco. Sure.
Sky Blue Sky, one of my favorite albums. It just happens to be sitting in a studio that we designed. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call with that.
I love it.
You also have some guitars here, some amps.
This is just a small piece of the amps. Like I have quite a few amps that I've collected over the years, and I was a guitar player originally. So some of these guitars, you know, the first two guitars, the Strat and that Tele, have been with me for 30 years.
Wow. Nice.
And so I've just collected them over the years. And, you know, if you take care of your instruments, they'll take care of you. And I have a bunch of amps in storage that I'll break out depending on the project. And in fact, we were talking earlier, one of the things that I'm going to do, what I'm calling phase 2, is we'll put an ISO booth back in the back.
Yeah.
I had to break it up because I ran out of money, which a lot of people will understand. And so I'm set up so I can do reamping in here.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll end up putting an ISO booth back in the corner that I can just go full out.
Yeah.
When it was finished, I wanted it to feel like my space.
Yes.
Like I wanted it to represent me really well. And this does that by far. And then that helps me work better. Like this is it's called the Rock Room. And I've had a version of the Rock Room for a long time, but its nickname is the Doghouse.
Okay.
And not because I'm in trouble, because the dog,
yes,
this is his favorite place also.
Yeah, Jax.
Yeah, Jax, the dog, loves to come out here. Now the downside of that is there's dog hair everywhere.
Yeah, it's fine.
And dog
helps
hair
with
and
more absorption,
and dog
so
hair and tubes and stuff don't go really well together. But it's quiet.
Yeah.
Right? Like we did such a good job with the design and the construction of it that you come in and shut the door. Like this is the best place that I've ever been to take a nap.
Yeah, right.
Because it's just what we wanted.
That's our new slogan, is that
we'll build you a place you can take a nap.
The best nap room you've ever had.
Yeah, but I think that's a testament to it, because I can think, I can hear the music really well. If I want to be, blasting something, full tilt, it sounds great. Yeah. But then I can also listen to things where I can hear the air conditioner over it, and it's still translating well. Like that was what I wanted. Like I was so pleased when this was finished that it ended up better than I was expecting.
Wow.
Which I would think, that's a testament to the skill in your team, is that, every when you're paying for a service, you want to feel like you got your money's worth.
Yeah.
But then to have your expectations exceeded, both in the technical, the aesthetic, and then how it makes people feel, I couldn't give you a better endorsement for somebody. If there's anybody out there you're thinking about getting help, get help.
I also do want to give a shout out to your wife, Tiffany, because she
did
an amazing job with selecting a lot of the furnishings and the lamps and couches. All of it just gives you this vibe of like serenity and peacefulness.
Yeah, thank you very much. She'll be really pleased to hear that. Her requirement for this is that it couldn't look like Darth Vader's lair.
Yeah.
Which was funny though, because when it was finished, it was black and red.
Yeah.
And it's got a little bit of Star Wars Darth Vader vibe. So then she came in and made sure the furniture and everything had the right kind of balance and appeal. So she'll appreciate you noticing that. And I agree. I think she did a great job. It's a really nice place to work.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is it sounds good. The fact that it looks cool is just a plus.
A little added bonus.
Yeah, it's an added bonus for sure.
Well, thanks so much, David, for allowing us to do this tour of your space. And it's just a beautiful room. You've done a great job with everything.
You. Yeah.
And thanks for having us over.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.